Okay, radios. What we have here are three different types of radios that operate slightly differently and bring different capabilities to the table. Just quick disclaimer, this is not going to be a specific review on these radios themselves as a unit, but instead it's more of an overview of the different types of communications that we have available. The only thing that I am missing is an FRS radio. We'll talk a little bit more about what the family radio system is, but those are your walkie-talkies that you can find at Walmart or at your general electronics store. And like I said, we'll cover that a little bit later on in the video, but I don't have one simply because I just don't run that type of capability. Let's see here. Starting from my right, your left, I have the Harris XL200. This is an LTE multi-band LMR or land mobile radio. Next, I have the ubiquitous Baofeng or Baofeng. I don't know. Correct me. I don't know how to pronounce that. But this is the UV5R. This is a ham or amateur radio. And this last little guy right here is also Baofeng. This is the UV9G model. This one is a GMRS or a general mobile radio system. All right. Why do we need radios? Well, obviously for communication. That could be communication with friends, whether we're out there off-roading or hiking or doing whatever activities and we need to coordinate communication with family members in case of an emergency. God forbid a disaster, backup communications is always good. And then communications with the outside world in the case that we don't have our cell phone communications available, or we want a backup system where we can not only just communicate with our team or our family, but we want to be able to reach out and communicate outside nationwide and with some of these radios, even internationally. So that is how we're going to get this video started. And without further ado, let's talk about some of these radios and their capabilities. All right, the first guy I want to talk about is this one right here. This is the Harris XL200, as I mentioned earlier. This is a multi-band LMR or land mobile radio with LTE capabilities. Now, this is a radio that you may or may not have seen very often, depending on what kind of job you do. It's not found very often in the civilian sector unless you're working for a private company that uses these. Generally, these are used by government agencies, law enforcement, emergency services, in order to provide secure coordination and communication. One big thing with this guy, they're very rugged. They're all built to military standard. If you guys that have any military experience or government experience, Harris, big name in the military world, specifically in the communications world. So they're all built to military standard. That's, shockproof, waterproof, all that good stuff. Particular capabilities that this guy brings to the table. It is Bluetooth enabled. It is Wi-Fi enabled. It has built-in GPS. And as you could have guessed by the LTE in the name, it also has broadband data sharing capabilities. Another very particular thing that makes this very useful for, like I said, law enforcement, government agencies, so on and so forth, is that these radios offer voice and data encryption. Now, these radios generally work on UHF and VHF frequencies. That's very high frequency and ultra high frequencies. And if you guys want to see a video about different radio frequencies and the science behind that, I'll be glad to make that for you. But they generally operate within the UHF and VHF spectrum. And then, of course, that added broadband capability for data sharing. This is a very rugged system. It is really straightforward in order to be used by anyone who just gets their hands on them. Doesn't require any kind of special training or any kind of special devices to operate it. It does have a built-in port for a push-to-talk system, such as, for example, when I use these for work, I have a push-to-talk system that will allow me to connect to this guy to a NATO-style lead. which will then lead to my Peltors, my contacts that I run on my helmet, so on and so forth. But this port here on the side of the radio allows it to be connected. Here you go on this side. Allows it to be connected to multiple types of push-to-talk systems, earpieces, and so on and so forth, just to make the use of them by law enforcement, government, and emergency services. And even private companies do run these guys as well. It just makes that a little bit easier and adaptable for whatever the type of setup that they need to run. These type of radios, like I said, you'll be hard pressed to find them in the civilian sector, and if they're even available for purchase somewhere, they are in the thousands of dollars, very expensive as you can guess, but the capabilities they bring are tremendous. Data encryption, broadband data sharing, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, built to military standard. So just a fantastic system. Again, this is the Harris XL200, but this is a good example of a LTE multiband land mobile radio, or LMR. Okay, and next we have the, I like to say ubiquitous, some would say infamous, Baofeng UV5R. This particular model is the 8-watt model. There is a 4-watt model that pushes a little bit less power. But this one is the 8-watt, as you can tell by the 8-watt denominator there at the end. This is a ham radio, or some would call it an amateur radio. This is a ham radio in its mobile format. So this allows you to take ham capabilities with you, of course, at the expense of some range, but still has all those ham capabilities built into it. It's a dual band radio, so it operates also in the UHF or VHF spectrum, and it has a built-in FM receiver so that you can listen to radio stations much like you would in any other kind of digital radio. This little guy has 128, I believe, programmable channels. These are channels you can punch in yourself using the full keypad that it comes with, and go ahead and transmit, and also both monitor and transmit on those channels, or on those on those channels. All right. One thing of note, as I said, this is a ham radio, so it does require FCC authorization in order for you to transmit on ham frequencies. I'll say this again later, but you do not need a ham radio license in order to monitor ham radio frequencies or even own one of these guys. However, the minute you push that button and you start transmitting, then you are required by the FCC to have a ham radio license. As a matter of fact, you are required in all your transmissions to use your ham radio call sign. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. This guy also has a built-in port for external communications. And a good example would be this guy right here. This is a push-to-talk that leads from the radio to a NATO-style system, or a NATO-style lead, just like the one I showed you earlier. And I can run this one again with my Peltor contact system or any other NATO-style system. But there are other adapters, just like the last radio for this guy, that you can use and run earpieces and other accessories out of it. This guy runs off of a rechargeable lithium-ion battery. There are so many accessories for this guy on the internet. If you guys just give it a quick look, I mean, there are just so many ways you can customize these radios. I'm running a different antenna here just for a little bit of range extension. So it is a collapsible or an extendable antenna, but there's so many different antennas, batteries, just so many accessories. This guy's all over the internet. General cost for this guy is low, $40 to $50, depending on the configuration in which you purchase it, and then any other accessories. When you go look at this guy on the internet, and I'll put some links in the description below for some information on these radios, but you'll see different battery types. As I said, this battery that I'm running on it is an extended battery that will give me a little bit more time or talk time, but you guys can choose so many configurations. That's one of the big things about this guy. As I said earlier, in order to transmit, with a ham radio, you are required by the FCC to have a ham radio license. You don't need one to monitor, but you do need one to push this button and actually transmit. The ham radio license, let's talk a little bit about that. I'm not going to go into deep detail, but for a general ham radio license, generally what's required is if I would take a couple of courses, because you do need to know a little bit about radio frequencies and the operations they're in. And then you can take an in-person exam at a local amateur radio club. They usually have proctors that the FCC has authorized to administer the exams. And I think last I heard, the FCC was also allowing online exams. That's something to look into. I really don't know too much what the latest and greatest is, but you might want to look that up. Just go ahead and Google FCC ham radio license procedures. And I mean, there are just ample websites that'll walk you right through the process. And then finally, after you pass your exam, yes, there is a fee to take the exam. Then you receive your call sign from the FCC and you are good to go. And you're good to start talking to other people. Some of the advantages of ham radio, well, you can have nationwide and worldwide communication. Now, you're probably looking at me and saying, you mean I can talk to people all over the world with this tiny little thing? And the answer, or short answer to that, is no, not with this guy. But there are bigger, much more powerful ham radio systems that can push a lot of power. And yes, absolutely, some of these bigger static systems, you can communicate nationwide with people across the entire country and even worldwide when the weather conditions are right and if you know what you're doing. So that is a strong advantage, particularly if you're considering this guy as an option to be able to speak outside of your team or your family and reach out across cities, states, and even countries. Another good advantage is that there's a strong network of ham radio users. All right. You can just Google ham radio clubs, and I promise there is a club somewhere near where you are located and even across the world. So that is a good advantage when you're looking at an alternate communication system. Having a strong network of users means a lot of support if you are just starting out, and also a lot of people to reach out to, more people to talk to. So that is a strong advantage of the ham radio or amateur radio world. This again is the Baofeng UV5R. It is by far not the only mobile ham radio. There is a plethora of ham radios available out there. Do your own research, but this is a good example of a mobile ham radio, the Baofeng UV5R. Okay, and finally, I want to talk a little bit about this guy right here. This is also a Baofeng. This is the UV9G model, which would make it a GMRS or General Mobile Radio System. All right, there is a distinct difference between the GMRS and the ham or the amateur radio system. And particularly the GMRS radios have pre-programmed channels, right? So they're not programmable channels. Like you saw with the ham radio, they are pre-programmed to operate within the GMRS spectrum. And again, if you guys want to see a video dedicated to the different types of radio communications out there, let me know in the comments and I'll be glad to do that. But back to this guy. So 30 pre-programmed GMRS channels. Also inside here, we have 11 NOAA channels, right? So you can listen to the weather at any one of those channels, and then each one of them, of course, correlates to a particular zone where you are. You can find the NOAA channels for your area easily online at the NOAA websites, or just Google it. Pretty simple. But again, 30 pre-programmed channels that operate within the GMRS spectrum. It also in there has sprinkled some pre-programmed repeater channels. Repeaters are a way for you to be able to extend the range of this guy. Advertised range for this particular radio, I think they say some audacious thing like 5 miles. You cannot get 5 miles range on this guy. Really, maybe in like perfect line of sight with perfect weather environment, but it is a much longer range than your standard store walkie-talkies or your FRS radios, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So It is a longer range radio system or a longer range communication system that operates in the GMRS spectrum. This particular radio I like, and I run a pair of these. Let's see here. I run a pair of these for multiple reasons, for multiple activities. I like these guys because the UV9G is IP67 rated. Okay, so what that means is I got a little bit of protection from water and dirt. So if I'm out doing some kind of rugged outdoor activity, or if I'm out in the rain or something like that, I don't have to worry about these guys taking a dump on me and not working. Okay. This guy comes with an integrated port that can be sealed here and just opened by unscrewing this guy in order to access those pre-programmed channels through software. And then you can label those channels so that you can use particular, if you're handing this out, that's actually a very useful feature. If you're handing this off to somebody that's not familiar with the radio systems, the channels, you can name them. You can't change the frequencies, but you can tag each of the channels, makes it easier to switch back and forth if you're running multiple comms with different groups of people. Much like the ham radio, you are required to have a license in order to transmit, that is, push the talk button on these radios. Again, no license required to own or to listen in, but definitely need a GMRS license from the FCC in order to transmit on these guys. The difference is the GMRS license is as easy as going online, getting an FCC registration number, then filling out the GMRS application and paying, I think it's like down to, used to be $75. I think it's down to $35 now at the FCC website. Not sure if that's changed yet or not. But you pay the fee, do the application, and then just wait a couple of days. The FCC will send you a call sign, and then you are good to go. Another great thing is that FCC GMRS license will grant one call sign that is usable for you or your immediate household. So it covers not just yourself as an operator, but your immediate household that might be running radios. So that makes these GMRS radios really awesome. They have a further range, right? And can push out a lot more power than your standard FRS walkie-talkies from Walmart. They do require a license, but it covers your entire family. And that makes them excellent radios for family communication, team communications, anything that requires coordination back and forth between a small group of people, right? And also makes them a pretty good backup system because the radios themselves have pretty long range. And if you are capable of using the repeater channels, you can extend that range beyond what definitely any standard, run-of-the-mill FRS walkie-talkie could ever do for you. And then it doesn't hurt, of course, with this particular model, if you find one that is IP67, IP68 rated, that'll have some durability because, let's face it, most of the time you're going to be using your communication systems, you're going to be outdoors, and shit happens, right? You don't plan for a storm to happen. You don't plan for your radios to go in the mud, but they do happen, and it's good to have that. So again, these are GMRS or General Mobile Radio System. This is the Baofeng UV9G, and these are really one of my favorite systems to use. I use this all the time when I'm either off-roading or I got to do any kind of coordinations with small teams. We have multiple ones. They use rechargeable lithium batteries. They sit on chargers, much like this guy right here. All these radios come with their charging stations as well. And just very good option. A little different from the ham radio. You will not be able to reach out, let's say, nationwide, and definitely not internationally with these radios. But if you just need coordination within a team or a family, this is the way to go, at least for me. So great system. Baofeng UV9G, GMRS, General Mobile Radio System. Okay, so there you have it. Your multi-band LTE land mobile radio system, your ham or amateur radio in a mobile format, and then your GMRS or your general mobile radio system, also, of course, in a mobile format. Now, the last guy I didn't talk about too much was the FRS, or the family radio system. Like I said, those are the walkie-talkies that you can find at Walmart. They will operate at much lower power, obviously a much lower range. If you guys have ever played with those guys, they range everything from the little toy ones that you have for your children with little princesses and Ninja Turtles or whatnot. I don't know what the kids are using these days, all the way up to some Motorola's in Midland that produce some little bit sturdier systems. But again, the range is very short, limited to line of sight, and they transmit at very low power. I don't have one of those to show you, unfortunately. But again, it's not a system that I normally run. But I did want to talk about these three. These are three different radios that are suitable for different capabilities. We talked about this guy being used for situations where encrypted communications is necessary, robust durability, and also broadband capability. With your ham radios, good way to be able to talk to not just your family members or small teams, but communicate outside, interstate, across the country and across the world, even. And then finally, with your GMRS, a great system to communicate in small teams, communicate and coordinate, and a fantastic, both of these are, I think, would make a fantastic backup system as well for communications. And as you can tell, I run all three of these. This guy I run for work. And these guys I run at home. These two guys require a very specific license, your ham license or your GMRS license. So something to consider. But again, you don't need a license to purchase them. So if you're just excited and you want to go out and buy any of these guys, doesn't have to be a Baofeng. There's so many other models out there across the entire spectrum of cost. You can go out and purchase these today, no issues. You won't get in any kind of trouble, and you can start learning a little bit about them, monitoring ham radio frequencies, GMRS radio frequencies, listening to traffic. Just remember that before you push to talk, you are required by the FCC to have the appropriate license to operate these systems. That's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, like I said, if you want to see some more in-depth videos as far as the science behind communications, the difference between ham radio frequencies, GMRS radio frequencies, data encryption, all that crazy scientific nerdy stuff, I'd be happy to do so. Just drop me a comment below, and if I get enough comments, then I'll definitely do it. I will have links to more information about these three radio systems in the description. And if you don't mind, give me a like, subscribe, and activate your notifications so you guys can see more of my videos as they come out. Thanks for watching.